Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Here.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Here.
Councilman McPartlin, absent. Councilwoman Weber.
Here.
Supervisor Syed.
Here. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Councilwoman McGraw.
I pledge allegiance to
We are going to go slightly out of order if we have two new recruits this evening. So I am now going to move to Resolution 2019-194. I have that right here. That is sponsored by Councilman McPartlin. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution to appoint police officers in the Niskuna Police Department.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
With great pleasure, aye.
Councilwoman Weber.
Yes.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
4 ayes.
and this resolution passes. If I could have both new recruits join me at the front, I will swear you in. And repeat after me. Okay, repeat after me. I, Joseph Scorzella, do solemnly swear.
No, no.
Next. I, Mario Culera, do solemnly swear
I, Mario Culera, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of police officer
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of police officer
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. Okay, repeat after me. I, Joseph Scorzella, do solemnly swear
I, Joseph Scorzella, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of police officer
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of police officer
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
I just wanted to say to Joseph and Mario, congratulations. You're entering a field that is so fulfilling. It comes with a lot of challenges and difficulties, but serving your community is something that few people get to do. You'll have your critics and your naysayers, but you'll really enjoy the job. So congratulations.
Next up, we have a presentation on National Migraine and Headache Awareness Month by Isabella Cementelli.
Good evening, Supervisor Syed and Town Board. My name is Isabella Cementelli, and I am 15 years old. Thank you, Mrs. Syed, for inviting me to speak this evening. June is National Migraine and Headache Awareness Month. 37 million people in the United States suffer from migraines. I am one of those affected every day by not just a headache, but also a migraine. Migraines are an invisible disability. There are no bruises, no crutches, or cast. Even though people look fine, they are hurting. I look fine, so most people don't know I suffer severe head pain every day. There are 1 billion people worldwide who suffer from migraines. Migraines interfere with school, work, and social activities. Migraines are 3 times more common in women than in men. They can cause throbbing pain and are usually isolated to one side of the head. There is often nausea and vomiting as well. Migraines can cause extreme sensitivity to light and sound. 2% of the population have chronic migraines and experience a headache more than 15 days per month. I am that 2%. I suffer from 2 rare headache disorders, new daily persistent headache and occipital neuralgia. I ask you to imagine this: not being able to use a cell phone, no watching movies. Washing your hair causes extreme pain. Chewing is painful. Plan on 1 to 2 hours for a meal. There are no physical activities to participate in, only walking. Feeling nauseous every day. Reading a book, plan on a few months. You wake up with a headache and you go to bed with a headache. Some days it feels like needles are stabbing your eyes and an ice pick is relentlessly poking at your head. Light bothers your eyes and sounds pierce your ears. When leaving the house, you never leave home without a pair of earplugs and sunglasses. Walking up the stairs is exhausting. By 1 o'clock, you are spent, but that knife-stabbing pain continues on. Your body is so tired, but you don't want to lay on your pillow. That causes more pain. I don't have to imagine this. I live it every day. This is my life now. On October 21st, 2013, my life was changed in an instant. This is the day in 5th grade that my chair was yanked from underneath me as I went to sit down. I fell hard. I suffered a concussion, fractured tailbone, and neck and back injuries. Tap dance and tennis lessons were replaced with numerous doctors, specialists, x-rays and MRIs, and endless physical therapy sessions. The effects of the concussion left me with the rare and debilitating headache disorders. I was no longer able to attend school and was placed on home instruction. Although my dream of becoming a rocket was over, I knew I couldn't sit and do nothing. I learned to knit and I started baking as well. My papa shared a family cookie recipe, which I tweaked to make it my own. I called them Isnets. I then started to sell them at my dad's restaurant. For my cookie sales, I donate to anti-bullying and brain injury awareness organizations. I also recently wrote a book, the short story One Tough Cookie, a true story. A story of how I learned to live with the effects from the concussion, an invisible disability. I am a member of the American Migraine Association, Brain Injury Association of New York State, Brain and Injury Association of America, the American Chronic Pain Association, and Invisible Disabilities Association. Migraines affect many people. For some, like me, it can be chronic and lifelong. To show support for those who suffer, I am asking for your support tomorrow. June 21st is Migraine Solidarity Day. This is a day to let all those who suffer from migraines know that you really care. One of the symptoms people with migraines have is photophobia pain, experienced from the light. By wearing your sunglasses all or part of the day tomorrow, you can show your support to migraine sufferers all around the world. With ongoing support and research, I am hopeful that one day we find a cure for migraine and headache sufferers. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening, and thank you very much for your time.
Excellent job.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was wonderful.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Isabella. And for any of our residents who visit me tomorrow, if I have my sunglasses on, you'll know why. We're now going to move on to privilege of the floor. Privilege of the floor is now open. If you would like to speak during privilege of the floor, you may approach the lectern, state your name and address for the record. And I just wanted to state that we are not adhering to any timeline constraints this evening.
Thank you very much. Good to see everyone. My name is Marina Franchild. I live at 2200 Dean Street in Niskayuna. I've been in Niskayuna for about 15 years. I wrote a letter to various people within the town organization expressing some of my concerns about the proposed memorial. And being an engineer by training and by vocation, I try not to make decisions emotionally. I try to make decisions based on weighing the pros and cons of things. So within these chambers, there have been several public community conversations in which we heard citizens' testimony concerning the noble and historical significance of the proposed memorial, the rise of anti-Semitism, as well as the need to maintain the natural character of a residential neighborhood earmarked for such a memorial. This commentary was appropriately emotionally laden, and I found myself responding sympathetically to the emotional passion of speakers, regardless of their point of view. At the second meeting that happened last month, I am Jewish, and I was moved to tears by the new memorial design. I actually cried sitting in my seat, especially when they talked about the stones. Very, very meaningful to me. But something wasn't sitting right with me, and after much thought, I was able to pinpoint what it was. After much thought, for the last year and a half actually, I realized that what seemed to be lost to the emotional traction of both points of view is whether the building of such a memorial on the proposed site is or isn't in violation of town code. Use variance is in fact permitted under Niskayuna statute for residential neighborhoods, for places of worship, religious education facilities, parish houses, and rectories. Due to the redesign of the proposed memorial as an education facility, it does seem that the Capital District's Jewish Holocaust Memorial entity is complying with town code. So I wondered, since this was known from the onset that what was proposed was not in violation of use variance, why were there public hearings? And I then realized that they were not actually public hearings per se. Rather, they were community conversations. Denise Murphy McGraw and Lisa Weber, members of the town board, really need to be recognized for spearheading the need for community involvement so that people's views could be expressed. They anticipated the emotionality and the passionate response of residents of Niskayuna, and they allowed for people to express themselves, which I am eternally grateful for. That was very, very important. They demonstrated great respect for all the residents of Niskayuna, including those residents living near our Most Holy Redeemer Cemetery. I have to put my glasses on, small print. Also, as co-chair of Dean Street Park Citizens Committee, community and neighborhood integrity is very important to me. So I actually understood where everybody was coming from. The thing is, when you're an engineer, you can't understand where everyone's coming from. You have to make decisions. And I've spent a lot of time trying to make decisions, and I'm sharing this with everyone today. It's not just the town board, it's people that are here, and it's also to get this on public record because I've spoken with at least 50 people, and I've heard all of the concerns, and I'm trying to put some of these concerns to rest. I'm not on the board, I'm sort of just a citizen, but I'm trying to be appropriate and build bridges. That's why I'm talking. So my understanding is that if the proposed memorial were detrimental per code, the town board would not have approved of it. That is my understanding. Also, what I feel that Denise and Lisa were very helpful in doing is by postponing, by encouraging the town board and whoever else was involved, if I left you out, I apologize, to postpone a decision so that the Jewish community, various leaders in the Jewish community, some of whom are here tonight, could actually meet and arrive at consensus in terms of a new design. So I'm very, very grateful, because speaking as an individual, the first design was very disturbing to me. The second design, when I just look at it, just looking at it, the way the pillars go in, it makes my heart soar, and it makes me feel what I'm supposed to feel. So I think it's a very beautiful memorial. I want to share some clarification on some points that have been muddy and troubling, and I have had to work through them in order to arrive at a preference. People have talked about the arrangement between Dr. Lozman and Bishop Scharfenberger, and that the arrangement was initiated without taking the neighborhood into consideration. I can fully understand why people would feel that way. However, if you look at it just in terms of a business, even though it's not a business, but if you look at it in terms of a business, people do not usually consult neighborhoods. It's the neighborhoods that will object, like to a proposed medical building or something like that. So it is not really the job of the people who are proposing something to consult the neighborhood. I wish it were. I actually think that's a deficit in doing root cause analysis. I think that's a weakness in how things are done. And I think if there was any way to legally correct that, that would be a good thing. People have objected to that the memorial will be in the cemetery. First off, my understanding is that it's not in the cemetery per se, it's on land owned by the church. So no graves are going to be disrupted. Also, we already have a cemetery in Niskayuna. It seems to me that because we have this cemetery already on the Troy-Schenectady Road corridor, that having a memorial is not out of character. Again, I've come to this after lots of thought. These are not emotional things. I've given hours and hours of thought to this. The next thing was location. I even wrote to the town and said, why can't we consider other locations? I actually spoke with somebody from the memorial team, and I found out that other locations really were not being considered. One, because of the fact that there's a cemetery already there, what I just said. But the other reason is really important, and I hadn't really considered that, and that's reconciliation. You know, in the past, all of us, all of our ancestry have done things that perhaps were not the best. And there is, I'm saying this because I'm not blaming anybody. There is a legacy of the Catholic Church and Jewish people that people are trying to change now. And I feel that in terms of reconciliation, I think this is a terrific thing. That's what I've arrived at after much thought. I think it is terrific that this could be a gesture, profound gesture of reconciliation between Jewish people and the Catholic Church. And this is after considering all of the facts. And people know that I was not for this memorial at first, but I've given it so much thought, and I'm trying to share my thoughtfulness with you. After much deep thought and after having evaluated all of the disparate points of view, I've come to the conclusion as a citizen of Niskayuna that this project overall has more benefits than detriments for the town of Niskayuna and its residents. Having said that, however, I do believe that the security of the proposed site should generate adequate funds to include security. It is not equitable for a non-resident and the church to tax the Niskayuna Police Department unduly. There's just not enough manpower, even with the 2 new recruits. There is just not enough manpower for the Niskayuna Police Department to protect the memorial. I know there will be vandalism. I have no doubt. When we put up a playground to code in Dean Street Park, we didn't have a slide that had swirls and loops because we would have found condoms, we would have found human excrement, we would have found needles there in the morning because that's what happens in enclosed spaces. We didn't want a 3-year-old to run into this. If that's what could happen in Dean Street Park, imagine what could happen in a barrier, in an area with a barrier where you can't see in. So I am recommending, even though I'm just a citizen, that the burden of security be placed on this committee in terms of raising funds, that should be included, and it should not be on the Niskayuna Police. Finally, as a last thought, my partner is traditionally Jewish, but she was Orthodox at one time. My understanding, and I'm not religious at all, but my understanding is that Kohans, which are the Jewish priests, are not allowed, except for their own family members, to go through cemeteries. To give you an example, Jackie Robinson Highway, they had to erect fences because it goes through a lot of cemeteries, or else Orthodox Jews couldn't drive on it. I don't know enough about this really because it's not my area, but I would appreciate it when people are discussing site plans, if they could figure out some provision. So if there's like an off-road, if it could allow to not actually go through the cemetery, if that's even possible. Thank you for considering all of this. And again, this was done as a gesture of building bridges. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Supervisor Said, respected members of the town board. My name is Dr. Paul Uppel. I reside at 10 Hilton Court in Loudonville, but don't let that mislead you. I only sleep there. Most of my waking hours are spent at 1944 Union Street in Niskayuna, which is the site of our Sikh temple, which we started in 2012. I'm here this evening to lend our support to the Holocaust Memorial proposal. I have a letter that I humbly drafted, which I will leave for the town board. With your permission, I would like to read that short letter for you.
Absolutely.
Dear members of the Niskayuna Town Board, we would like to thank the Niskayuna Town Board for giving us an opportunity to address you this evening. We are here to lend our enthusiastic support for the proposed Jewish Holocaust Memorial adjacent to the Holy Redeemer Cemetery on Route 7. We applaud the town for holding not one but two public hearings so that the residents of the community could voice their views regarding this project. To echo what I said in my address before the planning board at one of those hearings a couple of weeks ago, we are very happy to support this project. Niskayuna has been the home of our Sikh temple since 2012, and we are truly grateful for the town's support as well as loving support of the Niskayuna community. We are also a proud member of the Schenectady Clergy Against Hate, an interfaith coalition of houses of worship in the Niskayuna and Schenectady areas, which has as its mission to spread love, tolerance, and respect for one another among our various faith communities and local public at large. And I'd like to acknowledge Rabbi Matthew Cutler, who is with us today. He is the inspiration, and we thank you for your leadership, Rabbi Cutler, as the coalition has been in existence, and we understand, and we know that the town has officially recognized our organization. The goals of enhancing brotherhood and understanding in our community and of lessening the hatred and intolerance, we think, will be significantly helped by this memorial. As visitors to the site tour it and perhaps sit there and ponder what happened and recognize the cruelty of it, they will come to the realization that the hate, bigotry, and intolerance that brought about this infamous affront to humanity must never again be repeated. They will, each in their own way, be better equipped emotionally and psychologically to help make this goal of never again a shining reality. In that regard, the town of Niskayuna will have helped pricelessly in helping achieve that worthy goal. And that goal will be in our own town, in our own loved community, right here and right now. That would truly brighten the hearts and souls of our town. You, as members of the town board and the leaders of the community, will be the source of that pride in us all. And we promise that we will water it every day and keep it growing. We, the members of the Niskayuna Temple Sikh community, appreciate the work of dedicated and professional town officials like yourself, who will be making a determination on this project this evening. In closing, we respectfully lend our support to the Jewish Holocaust Memorial Project. Once again, thank you for giving us an opportunity to share our views with you and your colleagues. Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Charles Lester, 2451 Troy Schenectady Road. I wish I could recall how many times I've been in front of this same situation about variances on Route 7. Unfortunately, I didn't keep track of it. It's been many, 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 many times. That is the only thing that I oppose, is the variance change. I have just a couple things. I'm not going to read everything I have here. I'm just going to read parts of it. This is something I came across. I first arrived in Niskayuna on my birthday, June 20th, 1942. That was 77 years ago today. At that time, Troy Road was a 2-lane road with a rather wide area on the south side, which had been the original beds for the trolley tracks, which had been removed some years before. This is a letter my mother wrote many years ago when they were going to do some variance changes on Route 7. And I know there's been many people that have stood here and asked and received to not allow the variances, the change on Route 7, to keep Troy Road residential. That's all we've been trying to do. And it's the people that can't be here anymore, and my mother who can't be here anymore. She fought for this for years and years and years, and did diligently. And that's the only thing I oppose, is giving a variance change, because I'm afraid what's going to happen. Because I think once you accept that and allow it to happen in one place, it's going to happen in another place. It spreads. I mean, she's also has in here, this was one of the things. Many of the residents who reside in Niskayuna look upon the entrance of our town as the most beautiful entrance to what some believe is the jewel of the Capital District. So it's obvious to those of us who have lived on the residential road and have been actively involved in trying to keep it that way, just residential, and will continue to have to be ever vigilant. She's right. And she knew that. She knew that since she came here. And I came across something else that was just interesting to me, that how long people have been fighting to have this remain residential. This is a letter that was written to the town board on March 2nd, 1971. It was a petition signed by over 250 residents along Route 7 in the homes directly off on side roads off Route 7, of people who opposed changing the zoning on Route 7. So this isn't something that's just come about. This has been, as far as my mother is concerned, 77 years that she's been here and loved the residential characteristic of Route 7. And that's all I want to protect. I have no problem with this memorial. I had no problem with any design at all. I mean, it didn't really matter to me what it looked like. I mean, I appreciate that somebody wants to do something like that, but I just don't feel that I would like to see a zoning change. That's my biggest concern. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Privilege of the floor is still open if anyone else would like to speak.
Margaret Wexler, Troy Road. I hope our town council will honor the comprehensive plan and keep Troy Road residential. It is your sworn duty to represent the residents of Niskayuna. The residents that will be impacted by this memorial are the residents of Troy Road, and we want our neighborhood to remain residential. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Gay Griffith, and I'm a 24-year resident and owner of 1932 Village Road in Niskayuna. I am here again to voice my support, my undying support, for granting the special use permit to Dr. Lozman, Capital District Jewish Holocaust Board of Managers President, so that this important memorial can be built. I have spoken before here about my heritage as a great-grandchild, a grandchild, and a child of survivors of pogroms in Russia and the Holocaust. I have also mentioned my service in the IDF and surviving and being a first responder to 3 terrorist attacks. Anti-Semitism is everywhere, even here in our town of Niskayuna. My own 2 sons, who were educated in the Niskayuna school system, sadly, both encountered anti-Semitism. In the early 2000s, my older son experienced anti-Semitic slurs in the high school, and my younger son in middle school, one of them threatening. They are the 5th generation in my family to be singled out and persecuted for being Jewish. I want to do everything in my power to prevent it happening to the 6th generation and beyond. This memorial is an opportunity to educate and perpetuate the memory of the Holocaust and what hate and/or indifference leads to. It is an important lesson to us all, but particularly to children, so that they can learn as soon as possible that silence equals agreement. That it is important to stand up when someone or a group of people are being persecuted or bullied. A year ago, the town board made requests to Dr. Lozman that they work with the Jewish community and to arrive at a consensus. They did so with Neil Golub, not only a leader in the Jewish community, but a leader in the Capital District, the Federation, and Rabbi Cutler, my rabbi, worked tirelessly and fervently to achieve those requests. In that year-long process, the design was revamped, a vision statement was derived, the outline of an educational component was constructed. And now the new design has been approved unanimously. There is consensus in the community, in the Jewish community as requested. Accommodations have also been made to address concerns of area residents. This memorial would be an integral part of educating children and adults from all faith and ethnic backgrounds for the entire Capital District. The town, my town, has an historic opportunity to make this memorial a reality, to be the place in the Capital District that recognizes the importance of this history, so that we do really never forget, and we do really make sure it never happens again. Therefore, I am asking the town board grant the special use permit so that the real work can begin and this memorial can be built. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Reverend Donna Elia, 2532 Rosendale Road in Niskayuna, where I have lived for the past 17 years. Supervisor Syed and members of the council, I rise to speak in favor of this memorial to display that people of all faith traditions and people of conscience everywhere want this opportunity to do something that will help us all remember that we have to stand against hate, that we cannot allow this to happen again. And we in Niskayuna, who are a diverse community, it's one of the things I love about Niskayuna. And I think it's terrific when people move here from other places, because it makes the town that much stronger, that people have chosen to live here as well. And I love it that we're a community of people of many faith traditions. I think our opportunity in this area and the Capital District to say we have chosen to build a memorial, to stand together, to stand against hate, to educate our children. I was at one of the gatherings, and I appreciate that. I think that was really a wise thing to do, because people need to be able to express their feeling and to come together. It appalled me to think that Rabbi Cutler's children could have had pennies thrown at them. Every time we think that we are past hatred, we realize that we deceive ourselves if we think that the work is already done. The work is not already done, but we have an opportunity to do the part that we can do. And I so appreciate that we are here in this moment and have this opportunity to build this memorial. This will be important to people of all faith traditions. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Privilege of the floor is still open if anyone else would like to speak.
Leslie Gold, 1919 Pawtucket Avenue. I'm going to speak briefly as an alternate member of the planning board because people seem not to understand that this is a special use permit, not a variance. And this is, the Holocaust Memorial is a use that is allowed in the zone, but it requires an extra review by the town board. Normally, it would just have gone to the planning board. That it's a special use requires the town board action. The zoning board of appeals is not involved at all in this request. There's no area variance, no use variance. Now, as a citizen, I'm going to address two different issues. One is I do not favor time limits on speakers. I can understand time limits when it's a public hearing that's drawn many people. Ask everybody to stick to 3 minutes or 5 minutes and then sit down, let somebody else speak, and maybe call a second round for those who still have more comments. Totally understand asking people not to repeat what they've already said, or maybe not what other people, just say, I agreed with so-and-so, fine. But I really have an opposition to limiting freedom of speech. That's what it comes down to for me. The other thing I have an objection to is you're planning on calling a public hearing tonight on the community choice aggregation project. And I went through this and it remains an opt-out rather than an opt-in. When a utility overtakes another and you wind up with an entity you didn't choose providing these services, it's called slamming. My government should not be slamming its residents. Thank you.
Thank you. You have mentioned that in the past, and I'm sorry, it slipped my mind until you just mentioned it again. I apologize.
Hi there. Karen Berry. I live at 2336 Cayuga Road. I too have been involved with this for the past year and a half. I've attended various forums, went to various Rotary Club meetings just to become informed, find out what's going on. At the last forum, a resident of Niskayuna suggested relocating this memorial to the JCC. And I felt that this suggestion was good. In the spirit of compromise, this would appease those who reside near this location, proposed location, who had general concerns about the traffic, the curb cuts, vandalism, and the precedents this would set for future variances in the town. It would also satisfy the many who have vocalized at the podium or on social media or in editorials that this should be at the current location because of Catholic culpability. The land could be the land that has been donated could be sold to build single-family homes, and the proceeds could be used to fund the project. It perhaps will relieve the Jewish community member who voiced safety concerns about the current location being hidden away by placing it in a more predominant and well-traveled location. It would show respect to those who have burial plots at the cemetery. Dr. Lozman, who has dedicated many years to repair Jewish cemeteries overseas, understands the spirit of the sanctity of the cemetery. So relocating to the JCC would demonstrate the same respect to those who voice their concerns, who have cemetery plots there. This also would fulfill the objective by placing it in a location that can be expanded upon and reach more people. With the hundreds of acreage that is at the JCC, perhaps a building could be erected to house some of the Jewish artifacts that Dr. Lozman has in his possession that he voiced at the Rotary Club that appears to be confiscated by the Russians. That building could also possibly be used as a place for presentations, watching documentaries, etc., to reach a greater demographics of people, and more people can be educated about it. Last but not least, I was going to add this because I wrote two different things today real quick. Many people said this evening that we still need to do this to combat the hatred. I think that we've been trying to combat that on so many levels, in education, as parents, as communities, and I voiced at past forums that the previous educational initiatives that we've done, various memorials that we've done in the past, various museums that have been done globally has not eradicated this problem. There's been 43 genocides that resulted in 50 million deaths since 1956. It's happening, it's still happening. With that being said, it's not that I don't believe that we don't have to teach, reflect, and learn upon the history to make those stories who lost their lives never be forgotten. But I will say, this is my personal view, that due to the cultural, emotional, and system complexities of our society, I believe it's psychologists, doctors, social workers, and those in the mental health field that are truly equipped to provide insight what we should do to combat the growing trend of hatred against humanity.
Thank you. Absolutely.
I think you all know I'm Neil Golub. I live at 1021 Rosendale Road. I lived on Rosendale Road since 1944. When I first moved in with my family, I experienced hatred from the neighbors as I was a 4-year-old. The thing that's appalled me over the past number of meetings that we have had is that I have not heard one speaker talk about the programs that we already have installed in Niskayuna high schools and elementary schools and middle schools. Our teacher, Jane Golub, developed those programs in 1986. We have presented these programs in the high school, in the middle school, and in the elementary schools called The World of Difference, No Place for Hate, and Be an Ally. We've been on CBS for the past 8 years with programs that talk about Be an Ally and No Place for Hate. And yet I haven't heard one Niskayuna resident talk about the education programs we already have in our schools and the need to make sure that we continue to develop them and that they are in fact followed, because the programs are outstanding. And it's time that Niskayuna residents stood up and found out what's going on, because too many don't know.
Thank you.
Lorene Zabin, 2455 Brookshire Drive. I really want to commend Dr. Lohman and his team to bring this to the town of Niskayuna. I am not in favor of the location, and I've mentioned that only because it really isn't going to be visible, and I think it should be. It should be up down where the community center is, overlooking the Mohawk, overlooking not the Adirondacks, I think it's the Helderberg Range, where people could see it. And it's only because after 40 some odd years living here and being very close to the Troy Road exit on Brookshire Drive, we have been stalwart in protecting Troy Road, keeping it residential. Has nothing to do with the memorial. It's a wonderful idea. I just feel that we're going against the grain and the zoning of what people on Troy Road and in the neighborhood has tried to maintain for the town of Niskayuna. Has nothing to do with religion. My gosh, I have to think that Niskayuna is probably one of the most diverse communities I've ever lived in. I've lived in the South. Whoa! I've lived in Chicago. There's another big disaster. But the fact remains that Niskayuna is a lovely community, and we're not full of any kind of hatred. And I am aware of the many, many services that we have gotten from the synagogue, from the participants of rabbis on boards, and their involvement. But I want you to consider the fact that by doing this, you are opening up a little tiny wedge to the commercialism of Troy Road. My friend Sally Lester, who is no longer with us, she lived on Troy Road, and one of the mover and shakers of keeping a professional office building from District 1, which is down just a little bit below the Lyshik Hill. And I want you to know that we actually, I have to laugh, we were so successful. We had, I don't know how many wonderful attorneys from wonderful law firms stand up with the particular applicant, and we got them every time. Now, I don't mean for any reason that we should not have a memorial in Niskayuna. I am very anxious if you would re-look at the location. How about Niskayuna taking 2 acres of the Girling Center and trading it for 2 acres where they want to? This is where you could see this memorial, and you could be part of it. Being beside a forest, and that's what it's going to be, with some implications of traffic. I'm just saying that it's going to be a little difficult for us. And I know that you have a resolution prepared and you are going to undoubtedly pass it. But I do want you to think about the implications for the rest of us. Hopefully we'll have a few more years living here. Thank you and good night.
Thank you. Privilege of the floor is still open if anyone else would like to speak.
Carolina Rosbowski, 2576 Troy Road. I think by now you know where I stand on this particular topic of the Holocaust Memorial. I wanted to take my time tonight to just express our experience through the last year or so of this process. I learned something very important in school, Niskayuna High School, most likely, along the way, and that is there's a really good reason there's a separation of church and state in this country. This whole process has demonstrated why that is a very important principle, and our founding fathers were not wrong. At the first planning board meeting, I sat through the presentation by Dr. Lozman, and at the later end of the meeting, just to give you a contrast about how other issues are decided in town, there was a lovely woman who sat in the back to pretty much near midnight, who is employed by Target Corporation, the department store we're all familiar with. And she stood in front of the town planning board to debate the color they were going to paint the building that Target is in. She would prefer red and white because red and white are the Target corporate colors. By the end of the evening, in discussions with the planning board going back and forth, she was about ready at midnight to paint the Target Lowe's blue. That is the kind of issue the town board fights for residents on those sorts of things. As minuscule as they are, and they didn't get hundreds of hate letters about the Target being painted red, blue, white, purple, or whatever color beige it is now. This has gone on, and it is obviously a different type of engagement. And it's because of the separation of church and state, and that should not come into your vote. So I know that tomorrow's newspaper is probably not going to read, you voted no. It's probably not going to read that Niskayuna Town Board votes against middle-aged white woman across the street. If you voted no, the newspaper would read Niskayuna Town Board votes against Jews. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Privilege of the floor is still open if anyone else would like to speak. And last call on privilege of the floor. It is still open. If you would like to speak, do so now. Okay, seeing no one left willing to speak, I'm going to close privilege of the floor. We're going to move on to our public hearing. We have a public hearing regarding a proposed Town of Niskuna turf management plan. We're going to open the public hearing. If you would like to speak during the public hearing, please approach the lectern, state your name and address for the record.
A public hearing regarding the proposed Town of Niskuna turf management plan.
Oh, thanks, Michelle.
Hello, my name is Tom Hodgkins. I live on Rosendale Road. I'd like to thank you for delaying the turf management plan. So I could get a chance, everybody else could get a chance to read it. And so I have a few comments about it. I think it, in short, I think we can improve it in a few different areas. One is about the neighbor. I have some comments about the neighbor notification law. This is a very it's been around since 2000. I'm sorry, 2000, and this policy states a few different counties that have opted into it as of 2008. I think maybe it could be updated by reaching out to Environmental Conservation to get a new list of counties. And has the town of Niskuna passed the neighbor notification policy for pesticide use?
Laura? She was going to answer your question. That was all. She's trying to mouth to me to answer your question. Do you want it answered or no?
All right, so you can just update it. It says as of, that's all. So and those counties they comprise of the majority of the population in New York State. So what would the impact of that be if we had that in Niskuna in the town of Niskuna and the county? It would increase the cost for the pesticide companies, and that cost would it would reduce usage of pesticides. So I think in addition to the fact that you're going to be notifying people and people becoming more aware of the pesticides that are being used, I think it's really has a lot of impacts that were beneficial. So I think we need to move forward and pass a home rule supporting the county to adopt a pesticide notification law. And I think we should support that in this document. This one line about weed species causing injury due to slipping or tripping is a little, as a soccer player uses those fields, I don't know if that's necessary. So overall, I think there is a lot in this about the use of pesticides and fertilizers, and there's no mention of organic methods. There is no mention about in the part towards the end to hold on, let me just go on there, please. Sorry. So the use of chemicals is not minimized. There's no plan to really kind of minimize the fertilizers that are used, or to minimize the petrochemical fertilizers that are used. So I think this could be a place where we make a stand that says, we're not going to use the petrochemicals at all, and there's ways where we can get around that. So this process with the annual assessment of the turf comes in on page 5. There's an annual assessment. It's done this spring. It's left at a highway department. There's no methods of how they're going to assess, just a visual overview. You consult some turf management specialists that are going to be doing some soil testing to evaluate the nutrients, the pH in the soil. That's not done. So part of the annual assessment, which is only done once in the spring, it's not, I think we could use better methods to assess the quality of the turf, as well as I think maybe we could, involve not just the highway department, but maybe the Conservation Advisory Council or the Tree Council, get some other people involved with evaluating the turf, the grass, the lawn, besides just visual observations. And then in the second component, with the treatment of the athletic fields, there's a decision in the fall about whether they're going to use fertilizer. And again, there's no mention about what type of fertilizer. It's petrochemical based, and those do have significant environmental impacts because they're from petrochemicals, and when after you apply them, they release carbon as well. So there's a problem with those. I think we need to be minimizing those. But in the green spaces, it says there's a green spaces section on page 5. It says there's a decision in the fall on whether to use fertilizer, but then the turfs were assessed in the spring. So there's a disconnect between the assessment and then when the decision made is to apply fertilizer, that's in the fall. So I think you need to work out exactly when you're going to assess the turf and by who and what sort of methods you're going to use. I think that can be clarified. And then it has some section about this general grasses, which I no comment about. So you do have best management practices, pesticide application. You're gonna limit this, and I think maybe, for example, maybe just kind of put down specific times when it could be used, because it says if there's hogweed. So I think that's one example of when you're going to use pesticides. I don't really know of any other ones because hogweed is severely damaging. If you touch it, it can blind you. It can create huge blisters on you. It's really a big problem. But I think the town wouldn't be involved with that anyway. I think the DEC would come in and take care of that. So I don't know if we need to be applying pesticides in this town. And if we do, there's no notice for public notification. The town itself could be notifying the residents of when pesticides are going to be used, if they are. And that goes with fertilizing as well. There's no public notification in the fertilizing section. So if you're going to apply petrochemical fertilizers, there's no notification of the town. So I think that should be done, and that should be public and transparent about when you're going to be using those things. So I think you really should be pushing for the use of organics and mention organics in here, and some strategy to minimize petrochemical fertilizers and pesticides. And I have another comment about mowing. This talks about mowing for fields, for athletic fields, but there's a lot of areas in the town, there's a lot of parks that could be transitioned into low mow areas where there's really low use to them. And like I'm thinking of the Water Tower Hill, it's fenced off, nobody really goes there. I mean, there's really no need to keep that tree. You could just mow it once a year. It'd save the town money, and it'd be more beneficial to the environment. So I know there's might be other areas that we could identify in all the town parks that we could transition into more, not necessarily high mow areas. We could reduce town costs and benefit the environment by just letting these areas grow. So again, then in the section 6 residential lawn management strategies, there's nothing on pesticide application. So I think maybe you should look at that, and maybe you should encourage, not using pesticides in the residential lawn management strategies that you provide. And you should encourage organic methods. I think there's a lot of resources out there of how to grow a lawn without chemicals, without petrochemicals. So I think that should be addressed and should be encouraged through this document. There's a section on fertilization in the residential use. It talks about, it says fertilizing is not bad for the environment or petrochemicals, but really, when you use these petrochemicals, they're made from oil, and that's just, we're really in a very difficult time right now, and I think we really need to minimize all these uses of petroleum. And when you apply these lawn fertilizers, they release greenhouse gases after applied, and then they also kind of shift the chemical composition of the soil, and it really kind of changes the microorganisms. maybe long-term, this it kind of throws them out of balance for a little while because their chemicals are released all of a sudden. So those are my comments. I think we could improve it a little bit and address some sort of better practices and more eco-friendly practices in that document. So that's all. Becky.
Thank you. Public hearing is still open if anyone else would like to speak.
Hi, my name is Linda Nipper. I live at 15 Wiltshire Way. I am also here for the turf management program. I was very excited when I saw it come out, thought it would be a step in the right direction, but then called and got some further information, and I believe it's only for the public spaces. So I'm hoping that this is just the first step and that the next step will be to protect the taxpayers of Niskayuna, the private citizens from our neighbors that want to spray Roundup for 3.5 hours, as mine did about a month ago. And so I'm hoping that that is the next step.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Leslie Gold, 1919 Pawtucket Avenue. I do think the proposed plan is a step in the right direction. It's not perfect, but I don't think we're ready to go all out. And frankly, I would be upset if you told me I could never use a pesticide on my property because there are noxious weeds. It's not just giant hogweed. And I really don't think DEC comes around and takes care of that for municipalities. But there are other noxious weeds like water hemlock. I don't know how you eradicate it, but if it required using something from the petrochemical world, I would do it because it can kill small animals in very small quantities. It can kill people in small quantities. So there are other things out there, and most of us aren't particularly aware of them until we can counter a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Public hearing is still open if anyone else would like to speak. And last call on the public hearing. If you would like to speak, do so now. Okay, seeing no one left willing to speak, I'm going to close the public hearing. We're going to move on to committee reports. We're going to begin with Councilwoman Weber.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. I'm going to make this brief, knowing that we have a lot of important business here this evening. I am chair of the Community Programs Committee. Those of you who don't know me, summer's here, obviously. School's letting out soon. There's plenty of things to do with the kids here. Run by the town of Niskayuna. Our town pool opened last weekend. The swim team started practice this week. We're adding the last of our town summer hires for the pool and camp tonight in our resolutions, and we are all set and ready to go for our town camps. Please go to niskayuna.org to sign up for our town playground camps, for swim lessons, for playground, or any other sports camps. Let's see, or if you're just out and about, you can come in here, go upstairs, see Lori Peretti, Julie Lohr. They will register you on the spot. If you came in outside around 7 o'clock, you saw our fantastic band out there every Thursday night in the summer, except for 4th of July week. We have a wonderful band that's part of our free summer concert in the gazebo. So come, bring a chair, a picnic blanket, and enjoy the music on Thursday nights. Our full range of activities continue at the Senior Center. And in August 16th, we are having a 55-plus dance at the Senior Center with mocktails and a band and dancing, all kinds of fun. So mark that on your calendar if you'd like to attend. Our next community program meeting is July 9th at 3 o'clock. So I hope to see you then at the Schaefer Room upstairs. Okay, that's all I have.
Great, thank you. We're going to move on to Councilman Delarada.
Thank you, Supervisor. The Economic Development and Historical Preservation Committee meets the first Friday of every month. We will be meeting Friday. We tentatively are scheduled for the last Friday of this month, which is June 28th, right here in the Schaefer Room. Mainly, I want to direct everybody's attention to our upcoming festival, Saturday, June 22nd on Dexter Street, right behind Van Antwerp Middle School. There is going to be a Complete Streets pop-up event with a bike rodeo. There will be free music, giveaways, ice cream, And of course, kids can learn the rules of biking, and there's all kinds of biking events with lanes sets up for safe biking. Hopefully, folks can bike there, but there will be parking at Van Antwerp if you have to drive there as well. So hopefully, everybody can attend that wants to. It's a great thing. Also, the community choice aggravation, it was great to hear the thoughts on that tonight, the public hearing. Share your thoughts on that, and hopefully we'll go forward with that in the very near future. The only other thing is tonight you will see a resolution regarding the town historian to create a historical committee. This has been getting talked about for several months. I believe we are going to go forward with that today, mainly because it will be a report coming out from the town historian that we're anxious to see in July, and that might be able to kickstart this committee in a much more timelier fashion. Thank you, Supervisor.
I'm Denise McGraw. I have the privilege of serving as both the Public Works Committee and the Highway and Public Facilities Committee Chairwoman. Right now, obviously, this is a very busy time of year for both of those committees. The Public Works Committee and the Public Works Department is just finishing up a complete rehab of a water main over on Route 7. I know a lot of people who have been eagerly awaiting that project, and that is moving along. This evening, we are going to be voting on a contract for a design for a new water main project, and at least the initial stages of it, a new water main for the Mohawk area. We had 2 water main breaks within the matter of 2 days or 3 days. Very recently, this is an area of town that we have focused a lot of effort and attention, and it is now time for clearly at least looking at a design for a total revamp of that. The splash pad, which we have all been talking about and eagerly awaiting for a long time. If you've driven down River Road, you know it is well underway of being ready to launch. It will certainly be launching in the early part of this summer. The earlier, the better, obviously. And last but not least, in terms of the Public Works Committee, we have awarded a contract, and they are going to be starting immediately to repair the sign on Avon Crest, leading into Avon Crest. I never would have dreamed it would have taken so long. As we all know, the initial accident that knocked down that major part of that sign, that very historic part of our community and really our iconic part of our community. It happened in the dead of winter. We really needed the winter to end, get folks over there to look at it, get best prices and most comprehensive packages, and they are moving right along. In terms of the highway department, this is their busiest season, so they are still out picking up yard waste. The street sweeping is going to be taking place any day now, but prepping the roads for repair, patching, repaving. Another project in addition to the splash pad, Avon Crest sign, and is some revamping and freshening of the dog park. It really could use a little upgrade, a little love, and that is taking place, trying to get that all completed before the weather really gets nice and it gets its most use. And in terms of the weather has not at all cooperated, but you do see every day, all day, out at our parks, just trying to make sure that they are absolutely ready for when next week comes and the kids are out of school, but for everybody to really enjoy it and for the weather. So that is all I have, Madam Supervisor.
If I could just add one more thing to my committee report regarding the turf management plan, did forget to add, the town's hands are somewhat tied by that. Pesticides on private land are preempted by state regulation, so this is only a first step. We can only really apply it to public. If folks want to lobby to change the pesticide law, that really has to be done on the state level with state legislatures, assemblymen, and senators and the like. But thank you for your comments tonight.
Yes, and thank you for that distinction. We're going to move on to the supervisor's report. I will also try to keep it brief because we have a lot to get to. Last week, I had the privilege of touring the Brookfield Renewable Hydroelectric Plant at Cohoes Falls. Beautiful facility, beautiful area that I actually never knew existed, so that was kind of neat to see. I toured the plant with other elected officials, some other interested residents, including many from Niskayuna. So that was neat to be able to talk to them about The fact that we're exploring community choice aggregations, it was good to get their input firsthand. It was also good to see exactly the kind of energy mix that we could potentially be investing in, and also renewable energy source. So when you're talking hydroelectric, you're talking totally renewable energy source, which is great to see as well. Also, this past Monday, I took part in a discussion and a simulation on participatory budgeting. It was very informative. The meeting was open to the public. It was attended by many residents of the town of Niskayuna. They gave their opinions and some ideas on how we could implement this at even a small scale. So I have every intention of trying to narrow down the scope of some of those projects, talking about it with our council members and trying to identify if we can actually implement this on a small scale as a test product. Also, this past Monday, I attended the second meeting of the Niskayuna Partnership of Academics and Athletics Committee. We discussed the positives and negatives of community sports. And I look forward to continuing to attend those meetings, working together with all of the community stakeholders to see if there are ways that we can improve interscholastic sports in this town. So I'm gonna close it there because we have a lot to get to. So we're going to move on with our resolutions. We're going to begin with Resolution 2019-174, sponsored by Councilman Delarada. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution to forward enhance duties of the town historian and to create a town historical committee.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilwoman Weber.
Yes.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
4 ayes.
And this resolution passes. The next resolution, 2019-175.
Excuse me, Madam Supervisor, I'm going to make a motion to move up one of the resolutions.
Absolutely.
Not that I don't think it's any more important than the all-important historical committee, but I would love to make a motion to move up on the agenda 2019-182.
Okay. I will accept that recommendation. We're going to go slightly out of order. We're now going to move on to Resolution 2019-182, sponsored by Councilman Delarada. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution for final approval of a special use permit for a religious education facility at 2501 Troy Schenectady Road.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes. First, I would like to ask that Attorney Briggs address the room and describe what the town board can and cannot vote on this resolution, because there's been a lot of ideas discussed, and I'd like if you can address the scope that we are limited to.
The proposed project requires, it's an appropriate project for the location. It's properly zoned for the location. However, under our rules, a special use permit is required. Special use permit provides for a further look at the project. And tonight, the town board is voting on whether to approve the special use permit. If it approves the special use permit and the resolution has certain conditions to it, the project is then sent to back to the planning board to work on the details of the project itself. So tonight, the town board is determining only whether or not it will grant a special use permit to the applicant.
Okay, thank you. And we are not voting on the idea of the Holocaust Memorial. We're just voting on the special use permit.
Yes, you're only deciding whether this project is entitled to a special use permit.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments?
I just want to say a couple of things. I want, first of all, this project and this experience and this process has been extraordinary. There are many people in this room who have been involved in this town government for many years. You have lived in this community for many years. I don't really recall another project that has had in scope and in impact on people and the way that we were able to work with the applicant and this town board to try to lay out a process that was in every attempt to be inclusive. I have never been involved with an applicant before at the level of asking to have a process that was a year and a half or 2 years long. Being able to talk with everybody. I want to thank the people who invited me into their living rooms and took time to talk to me about their concerns. They meant a great deal to me. I want to thank the people who invited me to look from their property and their upstairs rooms in their house and what they would have seen. I spent a lot of time in people's homes and people's dining rooms and dining room tables with my colleagues or alone and just tried to understand. And I wanted to hear from everyone and what they really cared about, what they liked about it, what they didn't like about it. I want to thank the group who is sitting over here, led obviously by Dr. Lozman, the applicant, but Neil Golub as well, who was willing to put a lot of his life on hold for a little while to be able to lead an extraordinary process. He was able to put his personal contacts to use. Some of them are sitting here right now. He was able to work with a group and bring in world-class designers, world-class architects to try to take what he heard, just like what the supervisor and I heard in so many meetings and all my town board colleagues, and try to make the project something that more people in the community would be supportive of. I have said very often, I thought our first public hearing on this, where folks were lined up out the door, but no matter what somebody said at that podium, every person in the room clapped for them, was one of our finest moments in this community. Everyone was supportive no matter what anyone said. They appreciated it, they listened, they responded to one another, but it was all done very respectfully. I think a year and a half later, it is equally as respectful. I think people have concerns, but they have voiced them, they were heard. I think as many of them as possible have been made every attempt to incorporate them into whatever we were trying to do, whether it was the town board and how we were trying to set up a listening process. And somebody mentioned before the community conversations, there was nothing in whatever process that was prescribed those community conversations. That was something that the supervisor and I said were important and that we thought everybody should hear. I appreciate the people who said the room wasn't big enough the first time, so we tried a different room. That room didn't turn out to be too great either, but we tried because we really did try to listen to everything that people said, from the size of the room to where it's going to be, to how it's going to look, to things that we really are not voting on here at all, but just really maintaining one community that will have to live with whatever the decision is, and try to live together and try to live in a way that I think we do in Niskuna, respectfully and appreciating one another. And we might not always agree, but we do always listen to each other. And I think all of those things happened. Anything that was asked of the applicant, anything that was asked of the team of people that he brought in, they went and did. They listened to everything that folks said, and a lot of people got up and said, I'm not supportive of this, but if you did this, this, and this, wasn't going to change their mind, but they thought they were at least trying to give reasons that it could look better, or it could be better, or we could all be better as a community. And I want to thank everyone who had anything to say about this, who stopped me in the supermarket, who wanted to talk to me after church, who, whatever it may very well have been, and again, invited me into their home, because I was very touched by that, by so many of you. Again, this was an extraordinary process. I've never in my 10 years here seen anything that even came close to it. And I want to thank everyone who took the time to give us their opinion on whatever aspect of it they wanted to share. I am very grateful, and I think it made us all better town board members, and I think this process has made us better neighbors in our town. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further comments?
I'm going to comment when I vote, so.
Sure.
Just briefly, I just want to say how proud I am to be a member of this community, how proud I am to be part of a process that this community went through, how proud I am to have the religious leaders that we have in this community, how proud I am to have the community leaders and the neighborhood leaders that we have in this community. It's a wonderful community to be in, and I do think that this particular project does deserve a special use permit, but it's the process that we got here that I think we should all be very proud of. And I want all of our residents to know that this town board has considered all of the options that all of these people have spoke about. We did visit this scene several times. We did go into the resident's home. We did take the neighborhood and the surrounding neighborhoods into great consideration in determining and balancing whether or not the benefits of this project would overcome the detriments to the traffic, any safety issues, or any neighborhood problems within the character of the neighborhood. So again, I want to thank the community, and it's great to be a part of. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further comments? I would just like to say really quickly that I'm grateful for the pause that the Memorial Committee took. They didn't have to take it. They didn't have to take as long a pause as they did. But the members did so with the intention that they wanted to present the town and our residents with something that was truly remarkable. And remarkable it is. So to all of those who were involved in this process, from the residents to the Memorial Committee, I want to thank you. I want to thank Dr. Lozman, Neil Golub, Rabbi Cutler, everyone that's sitting in front of me here today, the residents especially. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your collaboration. Thank you for your caring. And most especially, thank you for your intention to better humanity. So with that said, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilwoman Weber.
I'm a yes vote. I'd like to take a few minutes to explain why I'm voting yes. After a year of quite important community conversation that discussed a great many things, history, design, content, and location, I also would like to thank everybody who participated. And I'd like to specify that our vote on this resolution is really limited to whether or not the applicant for the Capital Region Holocaust Memorial met specific criteria to be granted the special use permit. I was trying to limit my vote to those criteria. Personally, I think that the idea of the Holocaust Memorial itself is a very important one. We've seen an increase in acts of violence due to hatred in the past few years here in this country and all over the world. Fewer people are educated about what happened during the Holocaust, and there are fewer Holocaust survivors every day to share their personal experiences. But that's not the reason why I'm voting yes on this resolution. I'm voting yes because the applicant has met and even exceeded the requirements of the special use permit as outlined in the town code. The applicant actively participated with our conservation and tree councils and planning board and have addressed setback and drainage issues, parking and bathrooms. Extensive plans for foliage were made and remade in order to screen the memorial from busy Route 7 and from the neighbors who understandably want to keep their treed view a treed view. The planning board did recommend approval to the town board, and the only way to justify a no vote for me as a board member would be to find that the proposal is not compatible with nearby land use. As the property in question sits directly adjacent to an existing cemetery with a large mausoleum, I found it hard to make the claim that it would not be compatible with the existing, with the nearby land use. I thought it was different than a strip mall or a gas station with a lot of cars and pumps going in and out. So I did make that distinction, and I don't believe that this creates an opening for that other type of commercial use to come along that corridor of Route 7. In addition, I also wanted to point out the memorial, especially as redesigned, does fall squarely under the protection of the federal RLUIPA, Religious Land Use Law, which prohibits discrimination against religious groups under the guise of zoning enforcement. The courts have interpreted this law broadly. If our town was to deny this special use permit, I don't believe it would hold up in any resulting legal challenge.
Also, a privilege of the floor, I've heard people suggest that the Holocaust Memorial be at another location. That is something that, could have been suggested and was probably suggested to the applicant. That's not something that we can do as a board, either planning board or town board. We can't we can't get an application and ask the applicant to move it elsewhere. We have to consider the application at the location where the applicant makes it. So that's our role as town board members. So I'm voting yes on the resolution. I'm confident that the additional concerns of residents, especially regarding the traffic patterns, can be resolved during the final site plan review at the planning board, which is where this that's where the resolution will be going and the proposal will be going after the town board meeting. So thank you for hearing my reasons why I'm in support, and I'm voting yes, so thank you.
Supervisor Syed?
Yes,
4 ayes.
and this resolution passes. Now we're going to move on. We're going to move back actually to the order we were going in. We're going to move to Resolution 2019-175, sponsored by Supervisor Syed and Councilwoman Weber. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution for final approval of a special use permit for a farmer's market at 2227 Knott Street, Niskuna Co-op.
We'll take a brief respite while
Well, the whole
we
room
account for
leaves.
everyone leaving.
I'd love if y'all want to stay and talk about the farm market, but thank you, Rabbi Keller. I know. Yes, that was what it was. He got here before, I almost asked him to move. Yeah, I know, we know. I did think you were leaving too.
Okay. Did we get a second? I don't think we got a second on that.
No.
Second.
Okay. All right. Can I get a second?
I have seconded.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilwoman Weber.
Yes.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
4 ayes.
and this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2019-176, sponsored by Supervisor Syed and Councilwoman Weber. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution to authorize the supervisor to enter into and execute an agreement with the co-op for farmer's market.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilwoman Weber.
Yes.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
4 ayes.
and this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2019-177, sponsored by Councilman Delarada. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution to award a street tree master plan.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I'm going to second this because I thought I was sponsoring it. So there's a
Oh.
bunch of them like that. So I'll just second them.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilwoman Weber.
Yes.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
4 ayes.
and this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2019-178, sponsored by Councilman Delarada. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution to authorize the purchase of an electric vehicle for use in the town's building department.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilwoman Weber.
Yes.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
4 ayes.
and this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2019-179, sponsored by Councilman Delarada. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution to appoint members to a Capital District Community Choice Aggregate Steering Committee.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I'm going to second this too because originally John and I co-sponsored that one. So.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilwoman Weber.
Yes.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
4 ayes.
And this resolution passes. Next, we have the introduction of proposed local law A. And now we have resolution 2019-180, sponsored by Councilman Delarada. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution to call for a public hearing on local law A entitled "A Local Law to Establish a Community Choice Aggregate Energy Program in the Town of Niskuna."
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, that public hearing will be on July 23rd at 7 o'clock right here in the town hall.
Thank you.
Can we put in information up on the website about community choice aggregation so that
We've
people
had
can-
it a couple of times, and we've had 2 programs in town, but yes, there is a program that Jeff has, so yeah, we could get it back up on the website.
Okay.
It's probably there somewhere, we'll freshen it up.
we can just make it front and center prominent
What-
so people can.
Good. I would appreciate that, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
then that's the next step in the process before we actually choose our administrator. We're going to have the administrator come in and make a presentation before we choose them as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilwoman Weber.
Yes.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
4 ayes.
And this resolution passes. Next, we have the introduction of proposed local law B 2019. And now we have resolution 2019-181, sponsored by Councilman Delarada. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution to call for a public hearing on local law B regarding the expansion of the Metroplex boundaries within the town of Niskuna.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I'm going to second this too, and I'm not going to take any of this personally, Briggs or Laura, but yes, I'll just second it, so.
Oh, were these all supposed to be yours?
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
It's okay.
Okay. Is there any further discussion?
Once again, this public hearing is July 23rd at 7 o'clock right here at Town Hall.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilwoman Weber.
Yes.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
4 ayes.
And this resolution passes.
Yes,
Yes.
the historical, yeah.
Mhm. Yep.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, we voted on that.
Thank you.
It was the
We
second
did.
resolution that we held in abeyance until we did the memorial.
Okay. And we also went out of order. We passed 2019-182. So we're going to move on to 2019-183, sponsored by Councilwoman McGraw. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution to call for a public hearing on the Water District Extension for Harmon Grove.
Thank you. Can I get a second? I will second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilwoman Weber.
Yes.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
4 ayes.
And this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2019-184, sponsored by Councilwoman McGraw. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution to call for a public hearing on a sewer district extension for Harmon Grove.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilwoman Weber.
Yes.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
4 ayes.
And this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2019-185, sponsored by Councilwoman McGraw. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution to call for a public hearing on the Drainage District Extension for Harmon Grove.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. I got Delarada as a second on that. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilwoman Weber.
Yes.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
5 ayes.
And this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2019-186, sponsored by Councilwoman McGraw. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution to appoint seasonal employees in the Water and Sewer Department.
Thank you. I will second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilwoman Weber.
Yes.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
4 ayes.
and this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2019-187, sponsored by Councilwoman McGraw. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution to permanently appoint an employee to the position of Administrative Assistant 2 in the Water and Sewer Department.
Thank you. I will second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Yes.
Councilwoman Weber.
Yes.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
4 ayes.
and this resolution passes.
I apologize. I just wanted to say something nice about Kathy
Sure.
Parsons. So, yeah, obviously Kathy has worked here for a very long time. She has been a tremendous asset to the Water and Sewer Department. She also helps with some things at the Highway Committee, and especially with our meetings, and I am very pleased to be sponsoring this resolution. Thank you for your indulgence, Madam Supervisor.
Absolutely. Okay. We're now going to move on to Resolution 2019-188, sponsored by Councilwoman McGraw. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution to permanently appoint an employee to the position of Maintenance Worker in the Water and Sewer Department.
Thank you. I will second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilwoman Weber.
Yes.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
4 ayes.
and this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2019-189, sponsored by Councilwoman McGraw. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution to authorize the purchase of a backhoe for use in the Water and Sewer Department.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilwoman Weber.
Yes.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
4 ayes.
and this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2019-190, sponsored by Councilwoman McGraw. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution to award a design contract for the replacement of a water main on Mohawk Road.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilwoman Weber.
Yes.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
4 ayes.
and this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2019-191, sponsored by Councilwoman McGraw. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution to authorize the purchase of a dump truck, plow, and sander for use in the Parks Department.
Thank you. I will second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilwoman Weber.
Yes.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
4 ayes.
and this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2019-192, sponsored by Councilwoman Weber. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution to appoint seasonal employees in the Community Programs Department.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes.
Yeah, we have to amend.
Yes.
Sure.
Okay.
Would you like to make a motion to amend?
Yes, I would
Okay.
like to make a motion to amend the resolution to add a person.
Okay, I will second your motion to amend.
Okay, thank you. There's an additional pool employee.
Okay.
There's actually two.
There's
Okay.
two. Okay.
Okay.
We have Daniel Pritchard, recreation attendant. That was 725. And who's the second?
Daniel Chillard,
Okay.
Chillrud,
Okay.
also a rec attendant at 725.
And that was also Daniel?
Yeah,
Two Daniels.
that's what my piece of paper says. I hope so.
And he was also a rec attendant?
Yes.
And those are
725.
both under town pool.
Okay. Okay, are there any further amendments?
No, that's it. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yep, so we'll take the roll on the amendment.
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilwoman Weber.
Yes.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes.
4 ayes on the amendment.
Okay, and now we're going to take the roll on the resolution as amended.
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilwoman Weber.
Yes.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
4 ayes.
and the resolution as amended passes. Next resolution, 2019-193, sponsored by Councilman McPartlin. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution to permanently appoint an employee in the Police Department.
Thank you. I will second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilwoman Weber.
Yes.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
4 ayes.
and this resolution passes. We already passed Resolution 2019-194, so we're going to move on to 2019-195, sponsored by Supervisor Syed. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution to approve certain budgetary modifications.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilwoman Weber.
Yes.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
4 ayes.
and this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2019-196, sponsored by Supervisor Syed. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution to authorize the sale of certain surplus vehicles and equipment.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilwoman Weber.
Yes.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
4 ayes.
and this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2019-197, sponsored by Supervisor Syed. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution to authorize the payment for legal services retaining to issuance of bond acceptance notices.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilwoman Weber.
Yes.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
4 ayes.
and this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2019-198, sponsored by Supervisor Syed. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution to adopt a standard workday reporting resolution.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilwoman Weber.
Yes.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
4 ayes.
and this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2019-199, sponsored by Supervisor Syed. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution to authorize the supervisor to execute a consent letter for a modification of an antenna facility.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
Can you just explain what this is? Because we didn't talk about this in finance. so.
Yeah, this is a last minute addition. It's my understanding that they're replacing the 6 antennas that already exist on the pole. That's essentially what they're doing.
Okay.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilwoman Weber.
Yes.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
4 ayes.
and this resolution passes. Next resolution, 2019-200, sponsored by Supervisor Syed. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution to authorize the purchase of a population liability coverage.
Thank you.
Pollution, excuse me.
Yes. Thank you. Can I get a, thank you. McGraw will second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Delarada.
Yes.
Councilwoman McGraw.
Aye.
Councilwoman Weber.
Yes.
Supervisor Syed.
Yes,
4 ayes.
and this resolution passes. So before I make a motion to adjourn, I'm going to make a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to Section 105, subsection F of the Public Officers Law for personnel matters that will involve discussion pertaining to the medical history of a particular person. Can I get a second on the motion to enter into executive session?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signified by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we're going to enter into an executive session. The appropriate members can stay. At the conclusion of executive session, I will be adjourning the meeting.